Yeah.
He will render to each one according to his or her works. But I thought it was righteousness by faith.
That was immediately where I wanted to go in this conversation, so I'm glad that you brought that up.
So welcome back to The Move.
Hey.
Where we are vibing with the text 10 minutes at a time.
In the next 10 minutes, we're dedicating this time towards Romans chapter 2, verses 6 through 11.
And as always, the question is, did you read it?
Go take some time. Do it.
Go read it real quick. It'll take you 30 seconds and take another 5 seconds and go ahead and subscribe. Ready?
Yeah, let's do this.
Let's go.
10 minutes on the clock starting now.
So, interesting line, verse 6.
Yeah.
He will render to each one according to his or her works. But I thought it was righteousness by faith.
That was immediately where I wanted to go in this conversation, so I'm glad that you brought that up.
Go.
So there's this really interesting thing, because there's this tension here. There's this, this is the same dude who wrote Ephesians 2 talking about you're saved not by works, but you're saved by grace. You're saved by faith. It's nothing that you could ever do. But here there seems to be like a massive emphasis on works. And the question is, at which text is he lying? Or is there some way to reconcile these two?
So I would have to frame yet again that if we have this idea of a servant.
I'm just wondering where this framing is going to be at when we get to like chapter 12 and 13 and for like 10 minutes of framing.
Because we're building on, right? So again, if you have this servant, Paul is working at the estate, he's taken off. Do you seek after the orders, or do you seek after that which you've already been ordered, that which already you have? So I think this is the way I'm seeing it, is that he will render to each, the master will render to each according to his works, right? So according to what he does, according to that which he's already received, the orders. And for Paul, he has already received the liberty from slavery into being under the freedom of Christ, which he calls a different type of slavery, right? So that then...
Which, for clarity, is synonymous when we use language like sonship, right?
Yes, right? So he knows that he's a son, delivered. He knows he's been grafted in. He's included in the citizenship of this new political body, the kingdom, where Jesus is Lord, not Caesar. So that then... and Caesar in the sense of the Roman emperor at the time, right? So that this crucified Jewish carpenter is actually the Lord, and Paul, having full confidence and assurance, says, what I seek after will actually demonstrate where I begin from. What I seek after demonstrates where I'm rooted in.
Okay. So... you're saying that what we're seeking after is what we're rooted from.
Yeah.
So as we're seeking after these works, this is what we're rooted in? What do you mean by this?
So works, verse 7, to those who by patience and well-doing seek for glory, honor, and immortality. And through a lens of my own self-seeking, I would frame that as, well, glory for myself, maybe riches, maybe some sort of collective communal adoration, where on my Instagram account I got 100,000 likes, or immortality in the sense that my name lives and echoes in eternity, a la Achilles. And I would say, Paul would say, no, because the glory for him, now this is a little theological language, but the glory for him is the glorified body that he will get when Jesus comes. When he comes, I will see him, I will be like him, because I will see him as he is, right? There's this theology.
John 2.
There's this theology, right? And then seeking honor is, again, not honor for himself, but seeking the honor, like when in chapter 1, when he says, man, Romans, I really want to come and hang out with y'all so that I can have some harvest amongst you. What does he want to do? He wants to impart to them spiritual gifts so that they might be elevated and honored in receiving this good news, right? So he's seeking the honor of another. And then finally, this immortality is the seeking after that which is, in the great way, like the eternal, right? Which is the kingdom, that he's seeking after that which actually lasts. He's not putting his eggs in the basket of earth where moth and rust destroy. He's seeking after that which is kingdom. So seek ye first the kingdom of God. So he's actually seeking after these things precisely because of where he's beginning from, not because he isn't something and he's trying to achieve. Does that?
Yeah, I want to kind of push back on that a little bit because I'm thinking context. Like one of my favorite movies of all times is the movie Gladiator.
Man, I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
And I think of these lines, glory and honor and immortality. I mean, that was the epitome of what Romans were seeking after.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that Paul is pointing towards.
Yeah.
And like respectfully, brother, like I feel like you're over spiritualizing these things. I feel like Paul might actually be appealing to their, you could call it base desires, or you could call it the thing that God has planted in them, that kernel of truth is representative of something larger.
So that when they're seeking glory in the Roman context, when they're seeking honor and immortality in the Roman context, like there's a kernel of truth in seeking after these things. Is that what I'm hearing you? Yeah.
Yes, it's a shadow of the things to come.
Exactly, right? So then how are those things actually sought in light of the new identity as a slave of Christ?
How do they seek it out?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I'm not too sure here because, I mean, again, it's this emphasis on works, and this isn't something that's unique to this passage. Like Jesus talks about this seeming dichotomy as well. What is it? Matthew 7, not everyone that says to me, Lord, Lord, enters the kingdom, but those who do the will of my Father. So there's a certain sense in which, yeah, you're saved by grace through faith. It's a gift, but you're also judged based off of your works.
Yeah, so the will of the Father, if you do the will of the Father, you will not be, and if I could draw attention to say verse 8, but for those who are self-seeking, right? If you do the will of the Father, you won't actually be self-seeking, right? Another category here is for those who do not obey the truth, but obey unrighteousness, which is a callback to the beginning of Romans chapter 2, where you have this wrath that's being revealed, and wrath in the context we've discussed, of people who refuse to obey what's evident, what's true, right? They refuse to participate in the will. I see something going on.
So it's this exaltation of self above submission to the Lord.
Yeah.
So when they're seeking their own thing, so you could be seeking glory, honor, and immortality for yourself, which is one way to do it. Yeah. But if you're seeking the glory and honor of your Lord, that's the proper way to be chasing after these things.
And what's fascinating is that in seeking the glory and honor of the Lord, you're actually seeking the interest of others. So
prior to yourself.
Prior to yourself. So that he's actually seeking the interest of the Romans. He's actually seeking the interest of the kingdom and his master, first and foremost. And he does it through this patient enduring, right?
So a couple episodes ago, I forget which specific one, I made allusion to me not being a doctor.
Yes.
And how I wrestled through honoring my father and my mother. And I used to think that meant just do what they say.
Yeah.
And I started to realize over time that in order to honor my parents, I had to live honorably.
Yeah.
So if my parents were theoretically, because this wasn't the case, but theoretically, if they were asking me to do something that would cause me to live dishonorably in the eyes of God, I actually wasn't honoring them by doing what they asked me to do.
Yeah, I hear that.
Translating that into this circumstance, the most honorable thing that I could have done in that moment, because I had a call on my life from God, I had my marching orders as a son of the Most High.
Yeah.
The way for me to bring honor to my parents was to live an objectively honorable life by submitting to the Father.
Key word here. Obedience.
Yeah.
So that as you're obeying the marching orders of the master,
this is what brings you glory and honor and immortality.
Right? And that glory, honor, and immortality are all promised in the the to come, what's to come, but it's not yet. So theologically, we use this language of the already, but the not yet.
Yeah.
Right? So that then the key is to obey. And in contrast of you seek for the glory of the kingdom as opposed to your own self-passions. You seek the glory in patience and well-doing as opposed to not obeying the truth, right? So that you don't give yourself over to unrighteousness, but you give yourself over to the marching orders. Again, this thematic, right? And what I find so fascinating as we begin to wrap up is that Paul will conclude and say in verse 10, but glory and honor and peace for everyone who does good, the Jew first and also the Greek. So that means that the availability to do good is present to all. So this is why Paul can then say, hey, Greek, hey, nations, it was there for y'all to discover what we as Israelites knew. It was there for you too. And that sets up the indictment to follow.
Yeah.
All right, that's 10 minutes, huh?
10 minutes.
There
you go.
it is. So join us tomorrow in another 10, where we'll follow the journey that Paul's taking us on.
Good to see you there.